All right, guys. So before we continue with this series, I want to do something that I should have done whenever I first started this series, and that's do a video where I actually explain to you what I'm doing because I didn't actually do that, and I realized it later when people were asking me questions. So there's three things that we're going to be using in this to make this smart object system work. And we're going to be using state trees, smart object definitions, and contextual animations. So contextual animations, you're really not going to find any resources on this. What helped me get started was about 1 minute of video footage in a GDC video from a year ago, and that's the only information I had to base this on, and I scoured the internet. So I ended up figuring all this out, and I share it with you guys. And what I'm doing in this video is basically what he was demonstrating during that GDC. So let me just get started. So a smart object, it has a smart object definition, and it has a blueprint. And so on the blueprint, you have your smart object component, which holds that smart object definition, and it handles all the rest of it for you. So what you do is you have the NPC query or search for a smart object, and then try to use it. So it'll try to claim one of these slots. So you have to claim the slot in order to use it. And then once a slot is claimed, no other NPCs can claim that slot. So it prevents them from claiming a slot that's already been claimed or is currently occupied. So you have these color codes that help you identify this, and I'll show that to you now. So a gray slot means that it's currently disabled. A green slot means that it's free and can be occupied. Red means that it's claimed or occupied. And like I said, gray means that it's disabled. So you'll notice that one of those was disabled, and that's the secondary slot. And we actually have it enabled whenever from this slot right here. So whenever this slot is used, we grab this slot link that's linking to the secondary, and then we enable it, allowing another NPC to come over here and sit down. Now, it's not really necessary in the context of a bench, but I decided to do it like that anyway, simply because I want to try to cover everything possible in this series in relation to smart objects. So we use their entrances to start the motion warping. And so on the state tree of the bench, and I didn't cover that, but using the gameplay interactions plugin, it extends the smart objects so that they can have state trees. And I've only figured out how to access the smart object slot entrances from that state tree, because the gameplay interaction schema for the state tree, it automatically sets up a slot entrance handle for you, and that gives you a reference to the actual entrance. So, or entrances. And so if you have multiple entrances, you can identify them via tags. And yeah, so that's basically the rundown on that. We'll be going into more detail on this later in the series. But you have your state trees, and your bench's state tree actually takes control of your character. So whenever you fire a use smart object on your character's state tree, this state will never finish until this bench has finished. So after this bench state tree has completed successfully or completed with a failure, it'll relinquish, it'll fire a finish event on this, which will make this state tree start working again. So we go over all that in this series. So contextual animations. So a contextual animation is like a scripted play. So you can add sections to here but first you need to create a new anim set for the first time. So the first time you ever do this, you'll have to create a new anim set, and you'll have to have roles. And in order to have roles, you need a roles asset, which just stores the different roles that are available. And you have to assign a section name right here. And so you have these sections here, and you can come in here and you can set up animations, and you can offset them so that they're in the proper positions. You can set up warp point definitions and IK targets. So you can have IK targets, and this has built-in functionality so that, for example, you can have the character actually grab the door handle in order to go in order to open the door. Or you can have them motion warp to a point, and this will actually automatically create motion warp targets for you, and it'll actually drive the motion warping for you as well. So you don't have to set up logic that drives the motion warping. It's all set up inside of here, and you can handle all of that stuff inside of here. And that's what I do in this video. I actually have the contextual animation system create the warp points on the intro, and so you'll see these little white triangles down here on the floor. Those are the warp targets, and so whenever he starts playing this contextual animation, it'll automatically motion warp him to that location with that rotation, and he'll start walking forward. And so you will notice that whenever he motion warps into there, there is a bit of foot sliding. I'll try to address that later. It's not that bad, but it does slide a little bit. Some people probably won't even notice it. It's mostly only noticeable from the side. So if you're, from behind, if you're over here, you won't even really notice it. So anyway, I'll try to address that later. But yeah, that's basically the general rundown. You can add multiple anim sets to a specific section. And if you do, you'll see these numbers 0 and 1. And these represent basically the different anim sets within this section. And it'll automatically choose one of those anim sets. So it may randomly choose 0. And so if it randomly chooses 0, then entry 1 will play 0. Entry 2 will play 0, and the bench will play 0, which the bench don't actually have an animation, so that's kind of irrelevant. But if it chooses 1, then they'll both play that 1. And so yeah, that's basically the rundown on what we're doing, how it works, and what to expect. So I'll see you in the next video. And the next video isn't really necessary. It's just going over the basics of state trees, but it does cover a lot, which is why it's 45 minutes long. I do have it bookmarked so that you can go back and look through different sections if you have problems, but I think it's important that you watch that video even though it's somewhat long, because it does familiarize you with all the ins and outs of getting started with state trees. So I'll see you in the next video.